When Nanako heard Charlie caring about herself, her heart was excited like a little deer, and she nodded and said, "I know, Master Wade." Charlie looked at her and could still see the bruises and scars on the corners of her eyes. He could not help but exhorted, "The next match between you and Aoshui, you must remember to ensure your safety. If you feel that you are not Aoshui's opponent, then resolutely admit defeat and don't be ashamed, but don't hold it hard, because Aoshui's current strength is indeed higher than you, and it surpasses you a lot, too aggressive, for fear that you will be hurt." When Nanako heard this, she nodded gently, and couldn't help asking, "Master, I have a question. I have been pressing it in my heart for a long time. I want to ask you to clarify." Charlie said indifferently, "Just tell me, if I can tell you, I won't hide my personal information." Nanako hurriedly said, "For Aoshui's match, my teacher has also paid attention to it and research. I have watched a lot of videos of her previous games. I feel that her current strength seems to have improved by leaps and bounds in an instant, and it is obviously beyond the rhythm of normal training progress. So I would like to ask Master Wade, why did Aoshui make such a rapid and substantial improvement? Is this progress related to you?" Charlie smiled and asked, "What if I say it has nothing to do with me?" Nanako shook her head. "Please forgive me for being rude. If Mr. Charlie says it has nothing to do with this matter, I will not believe it." Charlie nodded and said frankly, "You are right, it is indeed related to me." Nanako said, "Thank you, Master Wade, for your frankness." As the two talked, they had already paced to the door of Thompson. Charlie looked at her and said, "Okay, you go back to rest early and prepare for the next game." Nanako was a little bit reluctant, but she nodded her head obediently, put her hands in front of her, and bowed deeply. "Thank Master Wade for these words tonight." Charlie smiled and nodded, waved to her, and said, "Thank you for your milk tea, I'm leaving." After speaking, stepped into the door of Thompson. Nanako followed behind and looked for a long time, until his figure completely disappeared in front of her, then she sighed and turned to leave. At this moment, Orus Hill International Hotel. Just after taking a shower in his room, Jiro poured a glass of whiskey leisurely and sat on the sofa in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking at the night view of Orus Hill with contentment. The reason why he is in such a good mood is because the attention level of the Orus Hill International Sanda competition broke the record in China, and even with this, the popularity of Kobayashi Wizen has skyrocketed. According to feedback, the sales volume increased 7 or 8 times at once, far exceeding his expectations. Look at it this way, Kobayashi Pharmaceutical will soon take a step forward. At this point, he felt refreshed and couldn't help drinking a few more shots of strong wine. After these few sips of wine, his stomach is hot. Immediately afterwards, there was some pain. Jiro's expression changed slightly, and immediately reached out for his own Kobayashi's stomach powder. In fact, Jiro has always had a hidden stomach problem. He has a good wine nature, and loves to drink the most, and he likes to drink strong alcohol, so some roots of the disease have long been left in his stomach. Last year, his stomach problem got worse, and the doctor told him to stop drinking. In order to solve his stomach problem, he relied on his professional knowledge of pharmacy, and specifically read a lot of classical medical books and studied a lot. The prescription, Kobayashi Wizen, was formulated. As a daily medicine that can relieve stomach discomfort, Kobayashi's stomach powder is very successful. But this kind of stomach powder is like a plaster, which can greatly relieve joint rheumatism, but it is almost impossible to say a radical cure. Stomach powder is actually the same. It is impossible to cure serious stomach diseases with Wizen. Just like a person, the cartilage at the knee joint has worn out, and the pain is all day long. In this case, plastering can only temporarily relieve the pain. At most it has the effect of reducing swelling and inflammation, but it must not restore a person's damaged knee cartilage. In other words, even if this kind of patient puts on a lifetime plaster, it is impossible to cure his knee joint injury. The same goes for Kobayashi's Wizen. Jiro formulated Kobayashi's Wizen according to ancient Chinese prescriptions. Although it has a great relieving effect on his stomach problems, it has not been able to cure him for a long time, so that Jiro now takes several packets of Kobayashi's Wizen every day to relieve his stomach discomfort. Just as he had picked up 2 packets of Kobayashi's Wizen and was about to drink it with whiskey, a knock on the door suddenly sounded. He put down the wine glass and held his stomach, and walked to the door. Through the screen of the electronic eye, he saw his assistant standing outside the door, so he stretched out his hand to open it. As soon as the door opened, he looked at the assistant outside and asked, "It's so late, what's the matter?" The assistant immediately handed a packet of medicine to him, and said nervously, "Chairman, today a local pharmaceutical factory in Orus Hill suddenly launched a stomach powder called JX Wizen, and also specially invited the hottest model in China. The female star Sarah came to endorse it. This drug has already set off a panic-buying frenzy across the country." "What the hell?" Jiro frowned and said coldly, "Damn, Chinese pharmaceutical companies dare to imitate our Kobayashi Pharmaceuticals fist products, it's too much." When Jiro said this, he didn't even think that Kobayashi's Wizen itself copied ancient Chinese prescriptions. He took the JX Wizen, looked at it a few times, and said disdainfully, "There are at least a dozen products that imitate our Kobayashi Wizen. There are at least a dozen products in China, South Korea and Southeast Asia, but none of them can match ours. This JX Wizen, it must be the same, just rubbish, not enough." The assistant said, "But, this medicine is unusual. It is endorsed by Sarah, and Sarah has never endorsed any substantive products before. This is the first time, so the fan effect is very strong. Fans of her have already generated an extremely scary purchasing spree."